Hello and welcome to a Christmas edition of Queens, Kings and Dastardly Things. I'm Robert Hardman, Daily Mail columnist and royal biographer, and wearing my green tie. I know it's not much, but bar humbug. With me as ever is my colleague and much more festive Professor Kate Williams, proud owner of a very fine Christmas jersey.
Yes,
Kate.
I am now an elf.
Oh, come on, you're more than an elf.
Yeah, I'm a Christmas.
Your Mother Christmas.
My Mother Christmas. I'm all set for the presents.
But I think today let's talk about royalty and Christmas. Let's go back to as far back as we can, because whenever you sing a Christmas carol, and we love singing them at this time of year, there's an awful lot of royalty in there. You know, we three kings of Oriental, once in Royal David City. What's your favourite royal carol?
Well, you're right, Robert. Royals and Christmas are intermixed. So many royal tinges to Christmas songs, and some of them may have been written by royalty. But one of the earliest royals who've got mentioned in a Christmas song and a Christmas carol is good old King Wenceslas. So, yes, the man himself who looked out on the feast of Stephen. On the feast of Stephen. Yeah. And Christmas carols, of course, the word carol means a celebratory song or dance, and many carols started off as just simply a song throughout the year, and then particularly, as we'll say, in the Victorian times, in the early 19th century, they become codified as this is what we sing at Christmas. So Wenceslas, he was a 10th century king, an early 10th century king. He ruled from 921 to 935 in Bohemia, which is modern-day Western Czech Republic, including Prague. So he was a 10th century king. And then it's a 13th century music. The music is 13th century, and it was actually a spring carol about Easter coming back, about flowers will bloom once more.
What about all that snow being crisp and even? There can't have been a lot of crisp and even snow in Prague in spring, was there?
Well, the whole poem was written and connected to that early carol in 1853. So King Wenceslas is actually a Victorian reinvention. In 1853, John Wilson Neal, who was really interested in collecting carols, it really was a bumper time to be a carol writer. It's like being a joke writer, perhaps in the 80s. If you were a carol writer, this was the moment. There was a bumper book of carols in 1823, then another one in 1833. So everyone was trying to write carols. And so thereupon, John Wilson Neal thought, I'm going to write a carol. Here's a nice 13th century tune in the way that Victorians like to recollect folk tales. And I'm going to combine it with this fascinating story of King Wenceslas, who actually wasn't even a king.
He was a duke.
He was a duke. Sometimes in the sources he's called a prince, but he was a duke, and he did rule the area. Now, Otto the Great, one of his successors, who was the Holy Roman Emperor, who basically contributed to making Wenceslas into this cult of Christian piety, he did say he can be a king now. Yes, marvellous.
But I think, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that today's House of Windsor royals descend, or not descend, but are definitely related to Wenceslas through the Bohemian throne. Because I think Wenceslas, he was a duke, but then, as you say, it became a kingdom. And his descendants, somehow, they got mixed in with some of the Habsburgs, who then branched off into. I think if you were to do a DNA test on Elizabeth II or Charles III, I think you'd find a bit of Bohemian in there. So maybe when they're singing that carol at Christmas at Sandringham, there's a bit of sort of, oh yes, good King Wenceslas, my forebear.
My forebear, my great.
Because the royal messaging is quite good, isn't it? Because he's being very nice to a poor man.
He looks out on the feast of Stephen, which roughly is usually the 26th of December in Western Christianity. He looks out on the feast of Stephen. It's very snowy, and he sees a poor man, and he thinks, I'm going to go out and help him. But the page with him says, I can't, it's too cold. And King Wenceslas said, you walk in my footsteps and then your feet will feel better. And the page does that, and they go out and they give out the arms. So King Wenceslas was a sort of Christian hero made so by the Holy Roman Emperor. He was a Christian convert. His grandparents were Christian converts, but his mother was not. And when he came to the throne as a young man, his father was dead. He came to the throne, and his mother wanted to be regent, but the grandmother was regent because she was a Christian. And so the mother bumped off her mother-in-law. She bumped her off. I think there's lots of strain with in-laws, obviously, at Christmas time. So she bumped her off. She bumped her off and took power. But then Wenceslas really thrust her out, sent her off into exile because he and his people wanted to be Christian. I think partly for religious reasons, but also it was good business being Christian in those times. You could ally yourself with the Byzantine Empire. So he was a sort of this great Christian convert who created this Christian world, and apparently did go out giving alms at night. And I love it because he goes out giving alms at night, and he didn't want anyone to know, but people noticed. And it does make me think of how royals or various, aristocrats and celebrities, were going out to give some Christmas cheer. Oh no! There's some photographers. Can you imagine? So he was spotted giving his alms. So he really was a real person.
Okay, so he's our earliest sort of royal.
Unfortunately, he was a very good king, but then got bumped off by his brother.
Oh.
His brother, Boleslav the Cruel, bumped him off.
It's quite a common feature of the old days, wasn't it? Fratricide.
Well, apparently Boleslav was quite a good king, but murdering your brother, I'm afraid, that is the end of your chance to be immortalised by a Victorian Christmas carol in 18.
Okay.
So Wenceslas, he's 10th, 11th century, but he sort of immortalised, as you say, in Victorian times. But what about some of these other carols?
Oldest known carol that we love singing.
I think that's a very difficult question to answer because so many of them circulated in oral traditions. And actually, even when we have the printing press, it was much more difficult to print music than it was to print text. So
yeah, because people still, for example, great songs like Danny Boy, no one can actually decide who wrote it or when it was composed.
A lot of our Christmas carols, actually, there's some competition or disagreement about who got there first. But I think one of the earliest and one of the most rooted, I think, in the 15th century tradition is that of the Coventry Carol. It's a very interesting carol because it's one that isn't very merry. It shows the dark side of Christmas. And the Coventry Carol is about the massacre of the innocents when Herod orders that all little boys under 2 must be massacred. And it is a lullaby sung by a mother to her baby boy because she knows he's going to die. So it is very striking. And where it comes from is from the Coventry mystery plays, which were a huge hit. So the Coventry mystery plays, actually in the city of Coventry, were hugely famous. And the mystery plays are a set of 10 plays of the New Testament, the Christmas story, performed by different guilds. So you, in the 14th century, Robert, would have been up there with the Journalists Guild, performing part of your Christmas play. And they were a huge hit. Richard III went to see them just a few days before he was killed in 1485. Henry VII and Queen Elizabeth went to see them as well. Royals patronise them. And they're performed by the local guilds. So the one we're thinking of, which contains a Mask of the Innocents, it goes Annunciation, Mask of the Innocents, is by the shearers and the tailors. And it would have been men. It's very unlikely that women would have been performing these. So it would have been a man singing as this mother to his baby, her baby, and aware that the baby would die. And it's not often sung, I think, because even though it doesn't talk about massacre and blood and horror, it's not, the Hunger Games as a Christmas carol.
Yeah.
It is also
well,
a sad side, but it's very beautiful when you hear it.
Okay, well, the Coventry Carol is very old, not very well known, and involves everyone's least favourite Christmas king, namely naughty old Herod. But have any kings actually written a Christmas carol?
Yes, and you can imagine who might have written the Top of the Pops Christmas Carol, who might have said, I know it's difficult to print, but print my carol. Well, we have Henry VIII. So Henry VIII is always mythically talked about as writing Greensleeves, and we don't believe that's true because the music it was based on was after his death. But one we do think he wrote, there were 2 songs we particularly think he wrote, which are often seen as Christmas songs. Now, neither of them make any mention of Christmas whatsoever, but they are sort of purposed as Christmas songs. And one is Green Groweth the Holly. No mention of Christmas, but holly is a Christmassy kind of thing.
It's a bit holly in the end of it, maybe.
Well, yes, there's been suggestions that he borrowed it or it influenced him. And the other one is Pastimes in Good Company, about having fun with your friends. Very Henry VIII type of thing.
Carousing.
Very carousing. And Henry writes this song. We think it's very likely to be him. And it's put down about 1522, so it might be a bit earlier than that. But as we know, by 1522, Henry is already pondering the other ladies at court, and in just a few years' time, he'll spot Anne Boleyn with that laser vision, and that's the end of Catherine of Aragon. And so he sings to his lady true, which we have to doubt is his wife. Let's doubt it. I was going to say, what do you think of these lyrics, really? Because, when it comes to it, sometimes monarchs get to write songs and tell jokes, and we all have to find them hilarious. So, as the holly grow green and never changeth hue, so I am ever been until my lady true. What do you think?
It's a bit sort of roses are red, violets are blue. I'll think of anything that rhymes with you. You know, I mean, it's okay. It's sort of, you know, B minus Henry, but you see why it didn't really catch on.
B minus, and of course Henry was never true to anyone, so it is the greatest irony that he
Oh
was.
yeah, I mean, you wonder who he sang that to. Maybe to all six of them.
All six of them, and of course Anne Boleyn was accused of adultery with Henry Norris on Christmas Day, so who knows what happened in the Tudor court. But it's interesting that Greensleeves, which is credited to Henry VIII, but wasn't him. And there's some suggestions that Greensleeves, a woman in green, is actually a sexual connotation, that a woman dressed in green is sexual because your dress gets green because you have sex outside on the grass. So there's something sexual about this connotation. And
It's not just a sort of like the green god
the
fertility.
green god, I think that you're absolutely right. I think it's the combination of fecundity and fertility and holly and greenness. And also for them, it's the sexual colour. I don't think people see that as the most sexy top colour at the moment. Certainly, obviously, it's something.
I'm wearing my green tie.
Well, there you go, actually. I've got green on my jumper. And most of the time, we can't even wear green on TV because of the green screen. So if it is the most attractive colour, none of us can wear it. So maybe Green Groweth the Holly is not just a song about holly and love. It's also one of Henry's sexy songs as well. So that's been repurposed as a Christmas
So
song.
he didn't write Greensleeves.
He didn't write Greensleeves, but we think
Because you can't watch a sort of Tudor film production drama or anything without the mandatory. Along comes, yeah, there we go, exactly. A bit of plinky plink loop with the da 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 da, and a sort of bit of hey nonny, nonny, and a doublet and a hose. So anyway, I'm glad we put that one to bed. Henry is not responsible for Greensleeves.
he probably is.
But he did divorce Anne of Cleves.
Yes, that's
That
true.
would have rhymed, wouldn't it?
I love Greensleeves. Get rid of Anne of Cleves.
There we go.
I want someone more sexy than that, but she didn't wear any green.
And I know we've discussed on Queens, Kings and Dastardly Things before, horrible old Oliver Cromwell, who got rid of Christmas. That presumably involved banning a few carols. Were there any kind of rebel carols during that kind of Cromwellian era when Christmas was outlawed?
A lot of carols were banned. It's interesting because certainly in Henry VIII's court, the big party was Twelfth Night. And really by Cromwellian times, Christmas wasn't as we know it today, the one that he banned. We see it as a children's festival. It is a family festival. It's a children's festival. The adverts start very early about all the things children want for Christmas and Father Christmas. It was much more of an adult celebration. You would have drinks with your clients. It was much more how we might celebrate New Year's Eve nowadays. Or it's a kind of cross between New Year's Eve and the office Christmas party. That's what Christmas Day is. So I feel a little of sympathy with Oliver Cromwell because it wasn't as if these poor quaking children were saying, where are our presents? It was more people were saying, where's our booze? But Christmas was banned. We know that Pepys tried to find a secret Christmas service in London, the Christmas pudding riots. But the Christmas carols did then go underground. But that was the hardest thing to stop because when you see someone humming, what do the Christmas inspectors say? I'm just humming a song. I'm humming a folk song because so many of them had this intermarriage with folk songs that how could they tell them apart? But there's some talk that God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, which is one of our real favourites. God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. Some scholars associate that with Charles II, that he wrote that. But it does seem to date back a bit earlier. It does seem to date back to 1650, just a couple of years after Charles I was killed. So it wasn't the merriest time in 1650, but perhaps someone was thinking...
And Merry had those connotations of booze as well, so it was a sort of party song in its day.
Maybe yes, you could go to the Cromwellian football match singing along with that. And yes, I do think that if it was composed in 1650, that's a very interesting point because it's being composed during the Cromwell time, during the time when Christmas is really under threat. Christmas is threatened. And clearly people did still have this desire to celebrate, some in a religious fashion, some in the boozy fashion.
But I think we've got to move forwards, Kate, to our absolute number one royal Christmas heroes, the couple who really created modern Christmas, not just for the House of Windsor, but I mean for modern Western society, and that is?
Victoria and Albert. Everything is their fault. That we got mince pies in the shops in September, that we got tinsel sold in Heathrow in August. It is all the fault of Victoria and Albert. They turned Christmas into this consumer fest, and the Victorians, with their incredible commercial acumen and brilliance at selling tat to the world and to themselves, saw how you could create this into this middle-class festival of shopping and buying and children. And Victoria and Albert had a picture of them on the front of the Illustrated London News, which was something of a Victoria fanzine at times, I'll say, 1848, of them by their Christmas tree. And it was actually a Christmas tree not quite as we'd know it. It was on the table, and we are usually expected to be on the floor. So unless you've got very naughty cats. Once Victoria had a Christmas tree, the whole country had to have a Christmas tree.
And had they not imported the idea from Germany? Should we not be giving the credit to really to
Queen Charlotte.
Saxe Coburg?
Queen Charlotte brought in the Christmas tree, but of course Queen Charlotte wasn't a fashion leader in the same sense.
Okay.
And we don't...
Queen Charlotte being the wife of George III of Mecklenburg-Strelitz.
So she had a Christmas tree. She had the idea that you deck the rooms with greenery, just as the Germans did. But no, first of all, she wasn't a fashion leader in the same sense as Victoria.
She was a grumpy little thing, wasn't she?
Well,
I was married to George III with those children. Gosh, I mean, you wouldn't have,
She was probably pregnant, yes, too exhausted to put up anything more than a small Christmas tree. And also, we don't have the rise of what we'd now call the middle classes who want this Christmas. It's still very much an aristocratic society in Queen Charlotte. And of course, Bridgerton is all based around Queen Charlotte. We have Queen Charlotte as a spin-off. But Queen Charlotte as the Christmas inventor, that's what she was, but no credit. So Albert and Victoria are giving this image of the perfect royal family. And already the Christmas juggernaut is rolling. We just mentioned the Christmas Carol books are being collected. Charles Dickens already written.
I was going to say Charles Dickens probably deserves an assist in the great 19th century
Out it
Christmas.
comes, the ghost story. So already the Christmas juggernaut is coming. If you don't buy things at Christmas, you are a bad person. Well, obviously, Scrooge was a bad person because he didn't give his workers time off. But increasingly, the message is that you show love to your family through buying them Victorian items. And with Victoria, it becomes a family celebration and children go to the heart of it. And not long after the 1848 bombshell of Victoria by the Christmas tree, we have the Christmas card, we have the Christmas cracker being invented, and the whole idea that Christmas is a festival. I mean, let's face it, it is, as Scrooge shows, it's a festival for the middle and upper classes. The working classes have to work. But otherwise, it becomes this gigantic celebration of Victorian plenty.
But if we take it right up to the present day, I mean, I think for most people, the most popular carol concert on the airwaves would probably be carols from King's on Christmas Eve from King's College, Cambridge. But I think it's really striking it in recent years, and it's becoming a sort of established thing, but is the Princess of Wales's Christmas carol concert from Westminster Abbey. I mean, that's now a big prime time event with sort of celebrities doing the readings. So, I mean, there's absolutely no way we've lost any of our enthusiasm for that template that Victoria and Albert created.
I wish that we might get a modern royal writing the old carol now. I'm sure they can better than Green Groweth the Holly. I'm sure they could put something better. And so many of these carols that we sing as our favourites are 19th century. King Wenceslas was 19th century, and Once in Royal David's City was a poem written by a very underrated female poet, Cecil Frances Alexander, an Anglo-Irish poet, and she also wrote All Things Bright and Beautiful. She had an ear for a poem. And these great carols, so many of them at Victorian, including one of my favourites, which is by the great poet Christina Rossetti, In the Bleak Midwinter, which gets across some of the sadness of Christmas that she felt.
That was one of the late Queen's favourites. I remember in her Christmas broadcast, the end of her Diamond Jubilee year, she picked up on that line about, what can I give him, poor as I am, I'll give him a lamb. I think, it does have a sort of slightly maudlin tone, but it's quite nice for all that, isn't it?
Yes, that's why I love it. And it reminds us that the Christmas festival is one that's always necessary to really get us through the dark months of winter, and there's always been a Saturnalia or some kind of replacement, which is why we might argue the history of Christianity is a big subject, but why Christianity was so successful when it spread, because it adopts so many of the traditions that are already there. So the Saturnalia festival, that was the Roman festival, just take it over and make it into Christmas and make it one of the birth of Christ. And the Victorians, of course, turn it into this gigantic celebration. And so many of their hymns, like Once in Royal David City, place the child at the centre. It is this child-centred moment. And really, I think we will never, ever go back to the idea that Christmas is an adult festival. I can never see it happening. It is a child extravaganza.
Pretty royal as well. I mean, you got those three kings.
I don't know about you, Robert, but I used to sing the funny versions of the carols when I was a child. Do you remember the one for Three Kings? We three kings of Orient are, one in a taxi, one in a car, one in a scooter beeping his hooter, following yonder star. And actually, when you look at the history, there were a lot of satiric carols, particularly in the Tudor times. Very interesting work by a professor of music in Liverpool, Lisa Carroll. And she said that, they're like jokes about whether women are good or bad. So when we sing things like Good King Wenceslas just looked out on the feet of Stephen, bumped into a Brussels sprout and said, I beg your pardon, that's what one used to sing. We're in that old tradition of making jokes. There's one carol that might have a secret message to a royal in it.
What would that be?
That is O Come All Ye Faithful.
Ooh.
One of our favourites. O Come All Ye
I
Faithful.
love the descant at the end. It's probably my favourite.
Is it your favourite?
Yeah, I think
It's often the finale of carol services, isn't it? O Come All Ye Faithful is often. Off you go.
I'm not going to try the descant, but I mean, it's when that breaks out at the end of a carol service, you really feel, oh yeah, Christmas is coming.
So, O Come All Ye Faithful, Adeste Fideles, I think we all think it's a Latin hymn that goes right back to the Latin. But actually, it was written, we think, there are lots of different possible authors, but one of the most likely authors is a man called John Francis Wade. He wrote it in exile in the 18th century because he was a Jacobite and he was hiding in France. He was a Catholic and he was hiding in France.
To get rid of those pesky Protestant Georgians and bring back
Protestant
bring
had
back
a bishop.
yeah.
So just to recap, what happened is James II, as a baby, James Stewart, everyone decides that baby is not legitimate, being brought in a hot water bottle, the equivalent of a hot water bottle. James II is deposed. Mary and William come to the throne, then Anne, James's daughters, and James Stewart tries to get the throne back, and then his son, who is Bonnie Prince Charlie, tries to get the throne back, and his supporters, the Jacobites, many in Scotland. He tries to come back in 1745. It all fails. They lose at Culloden, but still the supporters believe in him. And this man, John Francis Wade, was a very interesting man. He was a very skilled copyist of music. That's how he earned his living, as a pretty much hand-to-mouth exile. And while he was copying out this music, we think he also wrote his own music. And this idea that this song, O Come All Ye Faithful, is one that we sing in terms of worshipping Christ, but it also might have been one saying, keep your iron, chaps, keep your iron. We'll get those Stuarts back on the throne.
So it's an appeal to faithful Jacobites.
They'll come back.
Rise up and get rid of the Georgians.
Yeah, and of course, one day the Stuarts did come back. Prince William is partly Stuart due to Diana's blood from the mistresses of Charles II. So eventually the Stuarts got their way. When Prince William comes to the throne, they will get their Stuart king.
So faithful, you've had your wish come true. There it is, Prince William.
Prince William. But when you sing O Come All Ye Faithful, just think you actually might be singing a Jacobite call to arms.
Well, there we are. Well, of course, Kate, the other thing about carols is we love singing them, but we also get carol singers going house to house. And I know, because I remember when we were making a documentary down at Windsor, there is a sort of tradition of the residents of Windsor Castle going round the castle, knocking on doors, carol singing, and going all the way up to the top. And it was a very sweet moment when the late Queen brought out great trays of mulled wine for them. Then they went off and sang to the horses in the Royal Mews. So, but do we know of any actual royal carol singers? I mean, we know the royals like carol singers knocking on their door, but do they ever go out and about?
That's an interesting question, isn't it? Because wassailing, the idea of going round your neighbours for carol singing, is very old. I think predates the idea of carols, the idea that you go from house to house. I see them more and more in train station these days. I think the tradition is now in train stations. I love it in Paddington, and the big station when they go home from teaching at Reading, there's always a big choir there. But, were there secret royals going around doing carol singing in their secret groupings?
If we were to have royal carol singers, I just wonder who's got the best voice.
who would be singing in the royal carol singing troupe? Well, if we're going across history, Henry VIII would push his way forward. We have to say he'd be shoving his way right in the feet front. I think Anne Boleyn was a pretty good musician, as was Mary I and Elizabeth I. So they might be quite
Tudors
good.
be quite prominent.
But they might be busy, playing the lute, I think. We'd have some good... The Tudor court was a very musical court, so I think we'd probably have quite a few of them. Victoria, I think she was a pretty good...
She was quite good, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh, George III. George III was very, very musical. I would certainly put him in the mix. Probably not so much for singing, but certainly playing along.
Charles II would get the...
Charles II would definitely be the wassailing and the thigh slapping. I mean, I think he'd be
at the booth.
He'd be in the mix. Yeah, he'd definitely be dispensing the eggnog. And then moving in, George V definitely not. I think Princess Margaret would certainly have
Playing, yes.
stepped forward.
She knew the songs.
And Prince Edward, of course, he's got quite a talent for theatre and music, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I think they can put together a half-decent little choir.
So, really, I think we've got quite a large royal choir to go wassailing round the Windsor Great Estate.
Well, Kate, as I've said, my favourite carol is O Come All Ye Faithful, whether it's a Jacobite coded message or not. What about you? What's your favourite?
Go for it, Bonnie Prince Charlie. You want the Stuarts back. I do like In the Bleak Midwinter. I think it embodies all the different parts of Christmas, that it is about birth, but also the leaves are dead, many things are dead. It is about darkness and night. But yes, I think nothing can beat O Come All Ye Faithful, particularly when I know I'm singing to the Stuarts and saying to the line of Mary Queen of Scots, come back and take your throne.
Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. So it just remains for us to wish you a very happy Christmas. May your lords be leaping and your partridge sit firmly in your pear tree. A happy Christmas from me, Robert Hardman.
And happy Christmas from me, Kate Williams.
Goodbye.